Okay, welcome back to the People's Cabinet. RFK Jr., vaccines, and common sense. All of this is thrown into disarray as a result of the Secretary of Health and Human Services under Trump, and is just evidence of the misinformation that is happening as a result of this administration. And so I want to talk to you not about everything that is going on, but in particular, what is happening at the Center for Disease Control, what the response is from previous people who have run the Center for Disease Control, how that makes us less healthy, and my own personal experience with all of this over the weekend. So I was on MSNBC this weekend and I said this.
Can we just have a reality check on vaccines for a second? An unvaccinated person is 53 times more likely to die of COVID than someone who is vaccinated, 14 times more likely to get infected. Smallpox killed 500 million people in the 20th century before vaccines. Measles killed 2.6 million people per year. So I don't want to take all this quack science that we're getting from, by the way, if in the beginning of this election, one of Donald Trump's statements was that RFK Jr. was going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, people would have revolted, right? So we need a reality check on science and on what actually keeps people healthy in this country. And it's literally the opposite of what RFK Jr. is pushing.
Okay, so I don't think that this should be overly controversial, what I said, but unfortunately, this is the reality that we're living in. And if you look at the statistics here, this got over 1 million views. And I want to take you through a little bit of this. So the data that I got this from is the Center for Disease Control. It is a government organization with trained epidemiologists, people who track disease all across the world to keep us safe. And here is a study. And I will read not all of this, but I will read just this area, a study from 2021. During October and November, unvaccinated persons had a 13.9 and 53.2 times the risks for infection and COVID-19 associated death, respectively, compared with fully vaccinated persons who received booster doses. Okay? That is a line from the CDC. The CDC is the gold standard in data. So that is true. The smallpox, hundreds of millions of people dying is true. The measles part is true as well. There's so much disinformation that exists that all of this has now become so hijacked by Maha and the right. Now, why is this particularly relevant to RFK Jr.? Let me give you an example of Samoa, and let me also give you an example of some other things that happened with vaccinations to prove how crazy the Samoa thing was. There was a mix-up by some people in the medical field where a couple of people died. It was misinterpreted as a result of just vaccines not being safe. RFK Jr. went to Samoa. He fanned the flames. He even met with vaccine activists, anti-vaccine activists while he was there. He even took out Facebook ads targeted to talk about the fact that vaccines aren't safe. A measles outbreak, not surprisingly, happened as a result of all of this skepticism. It led to 5,700 infections and 83 deaths, mostly among children under 5. Now, to be fair, was it just RFK Jr. that caused this? No, but he certainly fanned the flames on this kind of misinformation that caused people to question immunizations and all of that. And what happened afterwards was Samoa has since achieved high vaccination rates, and the World Health Organization says the country has reported no measles cases since 2020. There's no doubt that the vaccination rates caused this drop in measles cases. Incredibly important public health, scientifically proven work that makes this better. Okay? That is measles. Now, there are countless other examples, and I can't even believe that I have to talk about this, of vaccines being a good thing for society. The One Foundation, which is Bono's foundation, talks about this many, many times over. He says the foundation says between 1974 and 2024, vaccines have saved an estimated 154 million lives. The majority of the lives saved were for infants. Vaccination has directly contributed to reducing infant deaths globally by 40% over the last 5 decades. On the continent of Africa, that figure is over 50%. there's a very specific example in the case of smallpox of when the WHO began a smallpox eradication program in 1959. Here is a chart. It is undeniable what happened as a result of the effects of this. So it is undeniable that vaccines scientifically save lives. This should not be a controversial point. There are many examples of this in measles, in smallpox, in polio, in many examples, and most specifically in COVID. He has long been, by people who know him the best, ostracized. In fact, when he ran for president, first as a Democrat, it was the Kennedy family, the people closest to him, that all endorsed Joe Biden. Here's a picture of Joe Biden with the family, so that should tell you a lot. But on top of that, if you look at the comments from my video clip, you will see even more the problem that is happening and doesn't seem to stop. First and foremost, one person said, even the 300 million measles deaths seem suspect. I was born in 1954, grew up in Africa with no measles vaccine. We ate lots of fruit and played outside in the sunshine. We all had measles, but I don't remember hearing of a single measles death. Not to say it didn't happen. Another person responded to that. I was born in 1958 and lived with among grandparents and even great-grandparents who surely would have spoken of such devastation. Okay, so I'm not sure these anecdotal cases, I had measles, but no one died, really is the best argument. Someone else tweeted out, the more you know, with a syringe, obviously a reference to anti-vax. Another person said, everyone I know who got vaccinated got COVID. The CDC is trash. Okay, not really sure there's a lot there. There was other people who asked over and over again where the source of the data was. I provided the article that I read to you. Despite that, people still asked for the source. Apparently, they couldn't click on the link. Another person said, those statistics are completely made up. If they were true, then why has the people I know who have been vaccinated contracted COVID far more than I have? And why is it the only people I know that have died due to COVID have been vaccinated? Again, the macro of the people who have COVID and the sample size of the people around you are very different. That is just clear. And then it got into personal attacks. One person said, another queer with an opinion. I'm a straight man. I'm not sure, regardless, whether my sexuality has to do with it. On top of this, one person who just took my photo and asked if I was trans. Again, I am not trans, but if I were trans, I'm not sure what that has anything to do with questioning the people who are questioning vaccines. That seems a little bit of a stretch to me. But look, don't take my word for it. There was an article, an op-ed on September 1st called We Ran the CDC. Kennedy is endangering every American's health. It is from a number of directors of the CDC dating back to 1977. And it says, collectively, we spent more than 100 years working at the CDC, the world's preeminent public health agency. We served multiple Republican and Democratic administrations, every president from Jimmy Carter to Donald Trump. These are Republicans and Democrats. What the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy has done to the CDC and to our nation's public health system over the past several months, culminating his decision to fire Dr. Susan Monarez as CDC director, is unlike anything we have ever experienced. They go on talking about how he's fired federal workers, that among the biggest measles outbreak, he's focused on unproven treatments. He canceled investments in promising medical research. He replaced experts in the federal advisory committees, on and on and on. And here's what's particularly concerning about this, to just bring this to a close right now. Messenger RNA, mRNA vaccines. These are the vaccines that helped us quickly develop a vaccine for Moderna and for Pfizer. RFK Jr. has cut $500 million in funding for that. That will hurt our ability to be prepared and to quickly develop a vaccine for whatever the next pandemic or disease is. Factcheck.org says, in justifying the government's termination of $500 million in funding for the mRNA vaccine projects, Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. falsely claimed the mRNA vaccines failed to protect effectively against COVID-19 and suggested they are unsafe. The mRNA shots saved millions of lives during the COVID-19 pandemic and have shown promise against influenza. And so these were funded by the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, which is tasked with preparing the U.S. for public health emergencies such as pandemics. HHS announced that BARDA would not be funding any new vaccine programs that use the mRNA technology. We have been conditioned by this administration to start accepting and debating what shouldn't even be debated. The science is real. mRNA vaccines save lives. This misinformation is taking lives. We need to stop the nonsense. This is ridiculous. RFK Jr. should resign. I praise the CDC director for sticking with her morals on this and sticking with her values. This is someone, again, that RFK Jr. had praised in the past, that Donald Trump had praised in the past. What I'm concerned about is all the other people who are still there, who feel like they have to do this because of their jobs and who don't know whether they can resign. We need everyone to speak up right now because it is the health of all of us, of our children, of our future generations to come that are at risk. The mRNA technology could save us from the next pandemic. RFK Jr. just cut $500 million in development of those things in the future. If there is a new pandemic and we are not ready and we don't have those vaccines, that is clear the through line of who is responsible for it. And again, if you don't want to get vaccinated, that is your choice. But I want to get vaccinated. And I think millions and hundreds of millions of people in this country want that. And to take that away from us because of some unsubstantiated misinformation is absurd and should cause everyone in this entire country to question what the hell we're doing here. Let's stay on this. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the People's Cabinet. If you did, please like, subscribe, ring that bell, and tell us who else you would like to see sworn in. And let us know in the comments what other topics you'd like us to cover. Let's go.